together. Every other revelation is locked in time and space. There's only one revelation that's eternal, and that there's only one God. That's the reason why thou believest there is only one God, thou doest well. The devils also believe and tremble. There is not one demonic power that can stand before the revelation of one God, because this is the whole basis by which Lucifer became Satan in the first place. He tried to lift himself up to be a God alongside of the God, and found out there was only room for one God, and he was cast down like lightning from heaven. Every time you talk about one God, it reminds the devil that he's not him. It reminds the devil that he's a failure. It reminds the devil that he got cast out in just a moment. It reminds the devil that he's just a wannabe. It reminds him that he's fallen and he can't get up. Come on, say there's only one God, and his name is Jesus. We need to release that eternal power. We need to release that revelation and put it into action in this generation. But we're going to have to get an interaction with that relationship of who Jesus is. We're going to have to get an experience with him, an understanding, a comprehension that is ours. And that takes climbing the mountain. That takes climbing the mountain. Now, in the valley, now here's the risk you run if you don't climb. Okay, are you ready? Here's the risk. In the valley, there were people that were disciples. These were not just believers or multitude. These were disciples. People that had been walking with Jesus for a while. These were people that watched Jesus cast out devils before and felt like they were qualified to try themselves. They were not what you would say novices. They had a relationship with him already. The problem was they were not current in their revelation knowledge. The mentality that they were bringing with them was something that was reflected by a past experience and not by fresh, intimate relationship with him. And so they spent their energy in futility. They reached what I call the paralysis of analysis. They had analyzed and analyzed and analyzed and analyzed and tried to figure out what they were doing wrong, and they were trading, taking turns, Andrew and Philip were holding him down, hold him down, now rebuke him. Come on, Thomas, come over and help us. I doubt if I can do any good. Simon the Zealot just pulls out a sword. Don't get any closer. Judas, what'd you have? Now I got some money to count over here in the bag. James the Less just stands there, speechless. You'll get that later. And they're trying to cast the devil. They can't cast him out. They're all taking turns. They are wearing themselves out, trying to cast out a demon that's on a level that they've never faced before. While at the same time, Peter, James, and John are seeing Jesus in a way they've never seen him before. Now, when they got to the mountain, the Bible says they fell asleep. That means it took a lot out of them to climb the mountain. But you just got to decide, my friends, where you're going to spend your energy. Are you going to spend your energy pursuing Jesus? Or are you going to spend your energy trying to solve things that you can't solve without him? Well, I don't know how we're going to make it through this recession. Well, I don't know how we're going to pay all these bills. Well, I just don't know what we're going to do. I just don't know how we're going to face this. And we spend all of this energy in futility, and we say, I don't have time to climb the mountain. Man, I got so much stuff that I'm dealing with. The problem is the more you try to tackle this without a mountaintop experience, the more you end up saying, what's wrong with me? How come I can't get out of this? How come I can't figure this out? And they're pulling Jesus aside with all of this self-doubt, saying, how come we couldn't cast him out? And Jesus said, well, this kind comes not out but by prayer and fasting. This is a different level. Now, what we learn from this is that the spirit world responds to the latest level of spiritual manifestation. The spirit world responds to the most current revelation. This kind came as a result of Jesus in the mountain with his face shining bright in his garments, and Moses and Elijah. This was 1,500 years in coming. Moses said, show me your glory. God said, I will, but you'll have to wait a little bit. I'll show you my hinder parts now, but later you can see my glory. And so the Bible says that Jesus appears in glory with Moses and Elijah. This was not just an everyday experience. This was something of epic, historic proportions. Moses and Elijah both, as representatives of the law and the prophets, are here to finally say, this is what we've all been waiting for. And when you read Luke's rendition, the Bible says all that Peter and James and John could hear is that it was something about his decease. They were talking about Calvary up on that mountain. Moses is saying, now according to the law, the only way that the blood can be applied is by a sinless, spotless lamb. You are that lamb. Remember that you must keep every dot and every cross every T. You have to do everything exactly the way the law says for the full redemption effect, for the fulfillment of everything that I put in place by the law. And Elijah's over on the other side, and he's saying, yes, but remember that there's a supernatural power that works in you. And as a result of you living this life and dying this death, there's going to be a resurrection power that's going to be unlocked. And Moses says, yes, and let me tell you that I was specially buried. And so there was a symbolism in my burial. And as I was specially buried, so you will be specially buried. And then Elijah says on the other side, and yes, not only will you be buried specially, but you see, I didn't even have to see death. I got resurrected, and I got translated. And the same one that translated me is the same one that's going to resurrect you. And you are going to ascend into the heaven. And they're beginning to talk about the elements of his death, his burial, and his resurrection, and the fulfillment of the law, and the fulfillment of the prophets, and they're sleepy and tired, and all of a sudden they wake up and they realize, wait a minute, hey, that's Moses, and that's Elijah, and that's Jesus, and wow, here we are in the mountain, and we're hearing things that the prophets of old have waited all of their lives to hear. They're seeing things and witnessing things. Jesus, you see, did not just bring Moses and Elijah into time. What happened was Jesus literally stepped back into eternity, and all the fullness of his glory that was with him began to manifest. And they got to look through that window for a moment. Wow. I mean, if you had seen his face change, don't you think you would have remembered that? If you would have watched somebody's garments become glistering white, don't you think that would have been forever embedded in your consciousness? It just left them full of questions. Wow, what about this and what about this? And so Peter gets up in the sanguine, he's got to say something. He didn't know what to say, but he had to say something. He's got to comment. You ever been next to people in church and they just got to comment on everything? James and John were just going, and Peter's going, hey, Jesus, hey, let's build 3 tabernacles. That's what we ought to do. Woo, that's it. I figured it out, guys. Let's build 3 tabernacles, one for thee and one for Moses and one for Elijah, because I got stuff I want to ask Elijah. I mean, all that stuff you did, like moving around through the wilderness and ravens feeding you, man, I want to know about that, and fire coming down from it. Man, that's really cool. I want you to tell me about that. And Moses, man, I mean, you're the man. I mean, I want to know some stuff like water coming out of the rock and manna and quail and what it was like up in the mountain for 40 days not eating or drinking. Wow. The finger of God. I'm going to show me that finger. And a cloud comes over their head. I didn't say what you thought I said.